What's happening? What's happening? You are now watching Juke Boy Sports Show. I'm your host, Kyng Ralph, here with my co-host, the homie Tar. What's good with you, Brody?
Man, I'm good. How's everything?
Life's good over here, bro. Getting ready to move.
Oh, that's what's up.
Yeah,
Congrats.
me and Julie went to go look at a couple different houses on Saturday. I wasn't trying to move as far back as Henderson, but I feel like the better bang for your buck is to go deeper into Henderson. Like we found like a 3 bedroom, nice kitchen, um, 2 baths for like 1850, 1950, something like that.
Okay.
And I'm just like, I feel like with the way the housing market, I'm tired of living in apartment complexes at this point, bro. They get on my nerves, so I just
Man,
couldn't do it no more.
yeah, bro.
So I'm renting until we can save up enough to put that down payment on that crib.
Yeah, feel that.
But life's been good. Finally got that promotion, officially the store manager now.
Congratulations. That's what's up.
Yeah,
That's dope.
yeah, I'm excited about that one. And came with that $2 raise. Sitting pretty. Can't wait for them checks to start coming in. But like we always do, if you want to record a podcast like what you're watching, music video, photo shoot, call the number on the bottom of the screen, 707 Fitboxer. And if you're looking for a jitterless, clean, no crash energy drink, go just get on your computer, on your phone, type in DUBBY.com, W.com, use promo code JUKE for 20% off. And make sure you go follow me at KYGRALPH, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, X or Twitter at an underscore. Follow us on Instagram as well as the podcast as a whole, Juke Sports Show. Make sure you go subscribe. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers by the end of the year. Just type in Juke Network, change the name a little bit, make it a little easier for you to find, and then like the He Say She Say channel on Facebook. And Karl Anthony Towns, the Knicks and the Timberwolves come to an agreement. Karl Anthony Towns goes to New York. Minnesota gets Julius Randle, White Dante DiVincenzo, and I think the Detroit Pistons are getting cash consideration for the draft pick. I didn't see anybody any kind of movement for them getting a player, but I seen that the Minnesota Timberwolves are getting a top 4 protected first round pick. What are your thoughts on the trade, bro?
It's one of those NBA trades where both teams win to me, because I know later on we're probably going to go to the segment who won or lost. I don't think there was a
Yeah.
loser in this trade. I think that both teams had a plan and they executed their plan. So to talk about the Knicks really quick, the Knicks needed a center, and I think that that was their biggest position of need. Mitchell Robinson is coming off of ankle surgery, and I think that was their weakest link. And with Karl Anthony Towns, you get a guy who can score, and you get a guy who can rebound and do some things. All star, can average a triple double. And when you start to kind of look at the landscape of the East a little bit, you're going to need a guy, a tall guy in the middle to plug in there, that could do some things because you're going to have to deal with the likes of Joel Embiid, Brooke Lopez, Miles Turner, stuff like that. And the Knicks currently didn't have that, and a small ball lineup wouldn't have gotten it done, with the taller, longer, bigger teams in the East. So and not only that too, Cat gives some familiarity with Tibbs, coaching him for 3 years, So I know he's not the greatest defensive center in the world, but Tibbs knows how to work with him because he's worked with him before,
Right.
and I think that he knows what to expect under Tibbs. As far as Minnesota's concerned, I feel like they won because they're at the place in their life or as a franchise where they got to save money. Karl Anthony Towns counted towards a lot against their cap, like too much against their cap, and you would have to start sacrificing guys like Nas Reed,
Yeah.
Nikhil Alexander Walker. Just those two alone. If you keep Cap, you couldn't have, or Cat, you couldn't have kept those two. And Nas Reed is a guy who's 25, 26 years old, just won
Mm.
6 Men of the Year. You're looking at age with Cat, he's 32. And you're looking at the
Damn,
situation.
Cat's 32?
Yeah, he's 32.
Sheesh.
And so you're looking at a situation to now. If you're Anthony Edwards, you want to start building your team around Anthony Edwards, and so you kind of want to start saving cap space and cap room and get younger around him. And you add a guy like Dante DiVincenzo, right, who
Yeah.
as a starter alone averaged 17,
Yes.
So he can slot in that he could play on ball, off ball, and he slides in perfectly with Anthony Edwards. You know, good 3-and-D guy, plays solid defense, and then you get a guy in Julius Randle, who it is a little bit of worrisome because Julius Randle's the type of guy who likes to have the ball in his hands a lot. He's very ball dominant. So is Anthony Edwards. However, you don't have to keep Julius Randle. He's a free agent next year, so he's a very movable piece. So halfway through the year, if you want to trade him, you could, do that and still, add players or do whatever. You can get off of his contract this year, right? And then, go sign a player next year, like a max contract next year to play with Ant. So from a cap flexibility and just from just an overall standpoint of basketball, it makes sense for both sides, and it was a solid trade on both ends. I'm curious to see how that first round pick pans out as well, because the next couple of drafts are very, very good. So if Minnesota ends up with a young player through the draft, that's another young player that you have with Anthony Edwards that we should keep an eye out on. So I like the trade for both sides.
I agree with you 100%, bro, wholeheartedly. I think that you get, like you said, the Knicks get to fill a need that they have longed for, I guess you could say, for a minute, especially with Brunson and the team that they have, bringing in Bridges, and then being able.
Oh, my bad. Karl Anthony Towns is 28. My bad.
He's 28. Okay,
that was my bad. Okay.
And so getting Cat, who can stretch the floor, take you off the dribbles, a versatile defender as well when he's engaged. Because there was moments last year where I think he played defensively his best basketball last year, as well as being able to stretch the floor. I feel like, so the Knicks get a need, but also I feel like it creates a space where, yeah, you might not have the star power, I guess you could say, but Julius Randle is a bucket getter. If you can get something out of him, he can get buckets, or you can use him as a piece to acquire something that fits better with the team that you currently have. I feel like Naz Reid showed last year that he can play the 5, he can play the 4. I feel like the way that Naz Reid in spurts guarded Jokic, being able to switch out on pick and rolls while also being a threat on the offensive end, I feel like you essentially realize, you know what, I can get close to that output with a younger player, half the amount of money, and still be able to bring in talent with this person, which gives you can play him next to Rudy, you can play him next to Julius if you end up keeping Julius. And then DiVincenzo, for every reason that you brought up, stretch the floor, tough defender, can create a bucket. IE kind of reminds me a little bit of the way that he creates off jumpers, is like Clay to a certain degree, but he goes to the rim a lot more aggressive, sneaky athleticism. And so I think it does. I think it's a good, I wouldn't say anybody won. I feel like I agree with you 100%. It is one of those ones where it benefits both sides. And then the deciding factor, honestly, can be what happens with the draft pick.
Yeah, that's how I felt.
And so Cam Newton is the reason why I even thought about this topic. He says if Eli Manning gets into the Hall, he should have 3 jackets. But does Eli Manning deserve to be in the Hall of Fame?
Okay, so when I first thought about this question, I kind of had to do some research a little bit, because I'm like, how do I feel about this, right? Because it's like asking me, does Robert Horry deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, right? True. Where Robert Horry didn't really do much in the regular season, but he made his money in the postseason. And if we did a compilation video on YouTube, right, you'll see all the work that he did in the postseason and nothing he did in the regular season. Eli Manning's the same way. But then when I kind of looked at it, through a wider lens, he definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And I'm going to kind of explain why, because I'm going to compare him to some other Hall of Famers. But before I get to that point, I look at, like I said, what he did in the postseason, and that will enhance the argument a little bit. Because number one, some of the teams that he won with, just regular season wise, records of 10-6 and 9-7. That winning Super Bowls with those. Right. Winning Super Bowls on the road beating quarterbacks like Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers in the snow, right? Being perfect, having a perfect quarterback rating in 2011. I believe he had 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception in the postseason, right? Knocking off Tom Brady, knocking off that undefeated Patriots team, which the Patriots team was way better than that Giants team. And he's the reason why Tom Brady's not at an astronomical level of rings. Like, we consider his ring count a lot already, but imagine if Eli Manning didn't beat him in those 2. It would have been furthermore, right?
And he would have had an undefeated season too.
Right, and he would have had an undefeated season, so we would have undeniably been the GOAT.
Right.
But when we compare Eli Manning to just other Hall of Famers and with their regular season numbers, right? So Eli Manning has a career numbers 57,023 yards, 366 touchdowns, and 244 interceptions. The interceptions are a lot. But when you compare them to other Hall of Famers, Terry Bradshaw, 27,000 yards, 212 touchdowns, and 210 interceptions. That's trash. But Terry Bradshaw's in the Hall of Fame because he has four rings and 2 MVPs.
Yeah, 4 of them things.
Kenny Stabler. I've always argued with my dad because my dad thought Kenny Stabler should have been in the Hall of Fame like a long time ago. And I never thought Kenny Stabler was Hall of Famer because Kenny Stabler, to me, I wasn't alive to see Kenny Stabler play, but just based off of his numbers were trash.
Yeah.
27,000 yards, 27,938, 194 touchdowns, and 222 interceptions.
Damn, that's crazy.
So he has more interceptions than he does touchdowns. Trash. Dan Fouts never won. He has a lot of accolades as far as Pro Bowls and stuff like that. Led the league MVP stuff like that, but he's never won in the postseason. So he never won a Super Bowl, right? But still in the Hall of Fame. 43,000 yards, 254 touchdowns, 242 interceptions. So he's a little bit up with the interceptions. He's a little bit up there with Eli Manning. And then you got Fran Tarkenton, 47,000 yards, 342 touchdowns, and 266 interceptions. So if we're going to shit on Eli Manning for interceptions, you got to shit on the rest of these Hall of Famers who have way more interceptions than Eli without the rings, because Fran Tarkenton doesn't have a ring. And I don't think Fran Tarkenton has the postseason success that Eli Manning has. And then if we even want to step up for this current day, Drew Brees has 2 less interceptions than Eli Manning does.
Yeah.
And Drew Brees has 1 ring compared to Eli Manning's 2. And he played in the same conference, in the same domain, essentially in the same era as Eli, and has 1 less ring than Eli. So it's like, based off of those, Eli Manning's a Hall of Famer.
He got a shitload more touchdowns though. But I do agree.
Touchdowns.
I do agree with you though.
Touchdowns.
Yeah, I do agree with you though. I feel like for me, in the Hall that I would have, he wouldn't be in the Hall. But based who's in there, he got to be in the Hall.
Yeah. He's at first ballot though.
Yeah.
But he's a Hall of Famer based off the fact that people who have done less than him in their career, and if you were to write the story of the NFL, you can't do it without Eli Manning because he knocked off probably the most dominant football team of all time. And literally he's basically won 2 Super Bowls with teams that were basically like the 8th seed. Like if we're comparing like in basketball, he was the 8th seed, knocking off the 1 seed, going all the way to the Super Bowl and winning. And he did it twice.
Yeah.
So that's historic and iconic by itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. I definitely agree with you. If I was doing a Hall, he wouldn't be in my Hall of Fame just because he just don't got the regular season body of work with it. Like, for me, I don't feel like he was that spectacular.
But like, again, none of these Hall of Famers are spectacular in the regular season.
You said what?
None of them. Terry Bradshaw didn't do
shit. Yeah, facts. But Terry Bradshaw wouldn't be in my Hall of Fame either. But for the sake of like what we're talking about here, will he get voted in? He gonna get voted in. He gotta get voted in. Ain't no way you hold him out.
And then to enhance his argument just a little bit more, Donovan McNabb was perfect in the regular season, crazy regular season numbers, but didn't have the postseason success.
True. Facts.
And he's not a Hall of Famer, and he should be, but he's not.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, postseason success matter. It looms more, especially from the quarterback position, than it does really any other position, is postseason. Because literally all these quarterbacks that I've kind of named, well, Dan Fouts didn't really, and Fran Tarkenton.
Yeah.
But Kenny Stabler, Terry Bradshaw, they made their living in the postseason.
And so before we go to the next one, just quick question. Just want to see where what do you think of it? Is Cam Newton a Hall of Famer?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like he's, for me personally, I do think he is. I hate when people do this because I do think you can't tell you got to mention him when you start to talk about mobile quarterbacks, when you tell the story of mobile quarterbacks. But I hate when people be like, oh, they deserve to be in the Hall because you can't tell the story without him. It's like, yeah, but it's deeper than that sometimes. I was like, I can see an argument for him, but I don't. Me personally, I feel like he's with Eli Manning right outside of my Hall. But yeah, that's just, I digress. And so next up, Derrick Rose officially retires. What is his legacy to you?
It's a shame that his career ended how it kind of did because of the knee. Because he could have been a top 5, top 10 player of all time, like considering the trajectory he was on. He was the youngest MVP ever.
Correct.
And some of the things that he was doing was pretty iconic, but it's those knee injuries that he suffered. It's almost like, to me, he's in that Grant Hill tier. He's in that Brandon Roy tier. He's in those type of tiers where it's like you wish that these guys didn't get injured. Even like Tracy McGrady. It's right. Like you wish they could have just been healthy, because if they would have been healthy, it's like the career trajectory that they were on and the things that they did and that you saw them do was spectacular, right? And they could have been more than what they ended up being, right? You're still great talents, right? But it's like they could have been in that championship level, with a ring and, with an NBA top 75, they could have that NBA top 75 jacket on, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I kind of look at him in that Kawhi Leonard mode a little bit, right? Because like Kawhi Leonard in his earlier on the stages of his career, he won and got his accolades to where now it's okay for him to get hurt a little bit more because he did what he wanted to do earlier in his career. Where I wish that for D Rose, that he could have smelled like he could have had that success earlier on in his career. That way, like his seating in the top 75 is undeniable.
Right. Facts.
Because you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of like I wanted more for him. And it's a shame that those injuries did occur because he was in that trajectory of being like a top 10 shooting guard of all time or whatever his position was, shooting guard, point guard, whatever he was. He was there.
Yeah.
But the injuries cost it for him to be more of a role player later on in his life. And, it kind of fell off, unfortunately.
Yeah, I 100% agree, man. For me, it's like we can sit there. I can talk about Derrick Rose for hours, honestly. Pause. But I do personally, I'm like, bro, he was so cold. Like, it's the way and the freakish athlete and the way that we look at like a Russell Westbrook. When Derrick Rose was at his peak, because I don't like to say prime because I still feel like he hadn't hit his prime yet. But like he looked regular next to Derrick Rose, where his game was he was so athletic, but at the same time, he played with so much control as a point guard. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like everything that he got to do, it sucks. I think the thing for me that I hate the most for his career is I feel like he still could have contributed at a high level, but because of his injuries, he never really got a real chance to get key minutes on a good team. So it was just like he was stuck playing spot minutes with the Knicks. When he finally did get good minutes, he was playing well. With the Timberwolves, he's playing spot minutes. Memphis barely played. And I'm just like, I feel like he just never really truly got a real opportunity So that's the one thing I hate once he left and had his injuries, just being able to be at least a role player, if a sixth, seventh man off the bench. If you're not going to give him a real opportunity to start, but Derrick Rose legacy is definitely in that conversation with the Grant Hills, the Penny Hardaways, T Max. Yeah, like it's just it's tragic. It sucks because of what he was able to do, that athleticism, the fearlessness, the way that he was able to get his team, and they really believed that like he gonna wield us. And it looked like he had the opportunity or was gonna get the opportunity, and then just to have that injuries, the knee injuries, rob him of it for whatever reason. That they want to say. Some people blame Tibbs. Some people blame the way that he would jump and fall. So it's just like, for whatever reason, the way it worked out or didn't work out, it just sucks to see such a amazing talent get handicapped like that, especially being the youngest MVP in league history. He should have been the starting point guard for a lot of them USA teams.
Yeah.
For a long period of time. And it's just he even rivaled Steph before Steph had became Steph. And it was just like the way he was hooping, bro. He was amazing. And he's a heck of a person. I don't have a bad thing to say about him. To tell a story I've told some of my friends is I have a cousin she played basketball at LSU, and I'm from Chicago. People don't know. And so my family, my cousin, when the year that her and Derrick Rose graduated high school was the year I graduated too. In 2007, she was the best female basketball player coming out of Chicago, and he was the best male player. And so they were cool, or at least cordial, and to the point, or close enough to the point where she got some shit I've only seen from two people. I remember, I think it was a dude that played for the Cowboys that got it too. It was like Gillian Beret or something like that, where your immune system attacks your nervous system and it shuts your body down to the point where she was a paraplegic for like 2-3 weeks. And so he paid for all of her doctor bills and doctor fees and things of that such. And so for me, it's like what she would have ended up having to pay, he took care of that. And I was just like, yeah, I'm never gonna have anything negative to say about him. I'm always gonna stand up for him at the end of the day. So he's always been a stand-up guy, and I think that this is one of those ones where, like, I'm not going to be mad if they put him in the hall because of the injuries and people that are already in the hall, but he's also one of them people that, unfortunately, injuries made it to where he doesn't have, outside of that MVP, he doesn't have a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah.
But I'm stay on the positive side. I'm not going to get into that and get into the negative parts of it, but dude was phenomenal. Derrick Rose go down as one of the most amazing talents to ever step on the basketball court. And so UNLV starting quarterback Sluka leaves the team for the NIL mishaps. Running back says he's doing the same thing. They bring in backup has a really good game, and UNLV wins. And so in the top 25 now, how good is UNLV?
First and foremost, I think their offensive coordinator is Brendan Marion. I want that dude to get his flowers, bro. Like, I think that when we start talking about like offensive geniuses and offensive play callers, right? And not to get into colorism or anything like that, but we tend to credit like a lot of these, younger white coaches, like the Lincoln Rileys of the world, the Sean McVays of the world, and we call them innovators of like an offensive system and give them a lot of credit for this stuff. What this dude at UNLV is doing, Brendan Marion, with the go-go offense, that is one of the most amazing offenses I've ever seen. And the guy should get his flowers, and he's basically won with 3 different quarterbacks so far. Jordan Mailata, that kid, Sluka, and now, this young man, right? And he's made them look amazing. And it's the offense that he's in, right? Like, the offense allows for a lot of playmaking. It allows for a lot of defensive confusion, with the RP. Like, it's an RPO to levels that we've never seen, like triple stack backfields um, and different formations that we've just never seen before. And you can do so much out of it that it confuses the hell out of a defense. And
Yeah.
I think that a huge part of UNLV's success is this guy. And I don't know like what's next for him. Hopefully, he gets a nice look at a collegiate job, to show more, and hopefully down the road, I don't know if this type of offense will work in the NFL.
That was going to be my first question was, do you think this offense works in the NFL?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it might end up being like Chip Kelly in a way.
Yeah.
But
you think he's good enough to make that adjustment?
I don't know, to be honest with you. And it's like that's where the ultimate litmus test will come in with him taking a good college job, having success there, and then maybe he can transition into the league. But just the simple fact that this guy, I believe he deserves his flowers because not enough people are talking about where the success is coming from, and a lot of it is coming from him. Odom, is off. Barry Odom has been in the SEC as a defensive guy.
That defense is playing really well too,
and he's cut his teeth on the defensive side of the ball. And it's proof that how the right coaching hires can pay the dividends to a team. And I just think that UNLV's coaching staff has done a phenomenal job of putting team first and team concept first, and having a scheme, trusting your scheme, and innovating a scheme, and having the right players in that scheme to make it work and be successful. And I think that they're really good, and the sky is the limit for them, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think that last year I started watching like about halfway through the season, and I even started talking about it on here, and try to incorporate because they deserve that praise because they are playing really good football. I believe last year we went like 9-3, something like that. And this year 4-0, starting off the year. Quarterback leaves, and then they beat the brakes off Fresno State, and so I feel like just being able to plug and play with the quarterback situation, he deserves his flowers. I didn't actually know his name until you brought it up. And then looking at Williams' stats, man, 13 for 16, 3 touchdowns, 182 yards, and another 119 on the ground. I think the quarterback, like, that's where I start to have the question of, like, could it work? Because I'm sitting here looking at he can't be no worse than Luke Getsy.
Luke Getsy is the worst. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, he can't get no worse than that. So, like,
it's trash.
To segue into that, what's the future of the Raiders? But like, yeah, it's just like that's when you started to ask those questions. Like, man, could that offense translate? Could he create an offense that translates? And it's just like,
I mean, if we're going to stay on the subject, because, I mean, we got like 28 minutes left.
Yeah.
Cliff Kingsbury, has, and Cliff Kingsbury came from college.
Yeah.
And, so, and you see what Cliff Kingsbury is currently doing with Jaden Daniels.
Right.
So, I mean, it just depends on the type of quarterback he gets.
True.
And, I really want to see him, get his own job. Like for example, Florida. I want to see him get hired by Florida because Florida's head coach is trash. He's not good. I would like to see him go to a school like Florida and see what he can do. The Florida's quarterback, not Graham Mertz, but the other kid that they have. Yeah. I would love to see him work with Florida, and transition to him and see what he would do like at a school like Florida. And if he's able to elevate Florida, then I believe, he could be ready for the league, and he could command it. But in a world where we're looking for the next Sean McVay, the next offensive genius, this is not being talked about enough. And we start to talk about like a lot of like the black offensive coordinators. Like you have Bieniemy, and that's like the only one people know.
Right.
Hamilton for a little bit. That's the only one people know. But this guy is a legit like offensive guru.
Yeah.
He's a black man, and he's a young black man that created an entire offense that's wrecking shop in college football right now. And a lot of people are going to copy this offense because there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Yeah, the wide receiver is nice too.
Ricky White, yeah.
Yeah, every time I look up, I look at his numbers and I'm like, yo, he cold. He produced even in that run-centric offense.
Yeah.
And so to say we brought it up earlier, Raiders going through some turmoil right now. Originally, I had the topic is we was coming off of a victory with no Davante Adams and no Max Crosby. Now Davante might get traded. Antonio Pierce over here liking tweets where Davante Adams questioning whether or not he played his last game. Now reports of him, not him requesting the trade, but the Raiders saying they're open to trading him. What's the future of the Raiders?
He requested a trade. So
he did?
Yeah, he requested a trade. He said he would like to be traded. So first and foremost, trading him ain't the worst thing in the world. Okay, so I'm gonna give good and I'm gonna give some bad. So the trading him is actually a good thing, right? Because where the Raiders stand in cap situation, next year they have $79 million in cap. If you trade Davante Adams' contract, I think he's owed like $35 million for like guaranteed now. If you get off of his contract, that gives the Raiders $120 million in cap next year, right? It's a lot of cap space. You could do a lot with $120 million. And they're not currently paying a quarterback. So That's another thing too. So whoever you get from a young quarterback standpoint, you're able to put a plethora of weapons around him. You already have Brock Bowers. You already have Trey Tucker. You already have Jacoby Myers. So you have stuff in place, right? And then you're looking at this defense. The defense is already kind of built. Like, I love the defense as it is, right?
Right.
So as a team, they're okay. Like, they're not too far off. The problem with the Raiders, and this is where the bad comes, is they don't know how to hire coaches. Their offensive coaching staff is horrendous, like from every level. The offensive coordinator is horrendous. The offensive line coach is horrendous. And it's like, I don't care. The quarterback coach is horrendous. They're all horrendous. And the only good offensive coaches they have are the running back coach and the wide receivers coach. Outside of that, they're all trash. And the problem with it is like, and I've been telling people, I don't care who the quarterback is, you can't win with bad offense. They have a bad offensive scheme, and they have to fix the offensive scheme, right? So right now, having Davante is not going to do much for this team because they're bad offensively. He hasn't helped improve the offense because their scheme is bad. Once they get off of Getsy and they start to look elsewhere and start hiring other people, you know, like if the Giants coach were to get fired, I would love to have Brian Daboll coaching them. You know, but it's just, you have to have a scheme that makes sense in order for you to succeed in this league. The Raiders scheme schematically doesn't make sense. As far as Davante, where I think he should go and what type of compensation I should get. I have two. I've been pitching this to Raiders people like for weeks now. I think they should trade Michael Mayer, and because they're not going to use Michael Mayer. They don't deserve Michael Mayer. They're not going to use him. I would get off Michael Mayer, and I would call the Giants and try to get Azeez Ojulari, the outside linebacker, the pass rusher. And the reason why is because Patrick Graham actually was the one that drafted him, right? And his rookie year, Patrick Graham had him at 60 tackles and 8 sacks. And he's dropped off mightily since then because their coaching staff has changed. So he fits perfectly on the other side of Max. So he's only 24, right? So you get a young pass rusher on the other side of him, second-round pick. So you're swapping a second-round pick for a second-round pick. So get off of Michael Mayer. And then I'm looking at Davante Adams, right? Mentally, I want him to go to the Commanders because I would love to see him with Jaden Daniels, right? Mm-hmm. But that doesn't really benefit the Raiders too much because, I mean, it does because you're trading him to the NFC. Right. But at the same time, it's like, what can you get from the Commanders? Maybe a second or third round pick. That's cool. But then I was thinking, right, a team that I think you can milk them for whatever they're worth because I think that they would do whatever to make Aaron Rodgers happy, the Jets. Yeah. And I would try to see if I can get as many young players from the Jets as possible. I look at Braylon Allen.
Yeah.
I will see if I can get Braylon Allen. I will see if I can get Malachi Corley. And I will see if I can get like a 4th or a 5th for Davante Adams. Because if you have Aaron Rodgers and you're trying to make him happy, he's going to be like, Braylon Allen, Malachi Corley for Davante Adams, let's do it.
Yeah.
Right? He's not going to turn that shit down. Because like Raiders are thinking too high. Oh, we're going to get Garrett Wilson. No, you're not going to get Garrett Wilson. Shut the fuck up. You're not getting Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, facts, bro. No, it's not.
So it's like you got to start thinking smart. Braylon Edwards is the youngest player in the league, and he's been producing. He's looking better than Breece Hall.
Facts.
Raiders don't have a running back currently.
Right.
So Breece, like you get a young 19, 20-year-old running back.
And I was really high on Malachi Corley coming out of college.
And Malachi Corley is somebody that's not even getting burned on the Jets right now.
Yeah. He was like, I had him in my top 10.
Yeah, so he's not getting burned. So you easily get a younger wide receiver, and then you get like a little 4th or 5th round pick for him, and you're still like $120 million cap room and 3 young players. By what I've been saying, a young pass rusher, a running back, and a wide receiver. I would do that all day if I'm the Raiders, right? But Raiders don't think smart, so I don't know. I don't know. I've been dying on that. We've been dying on that hill every Sunday since we've been alive. We're 30, so it's like. They don't think smart, but
I had him as the number 8 wide receiver coming out the draft.
Yeah, so
and it was a deep wide receiver class.
So yeah,
but yeah, I can see that, man. To me, it's just like I remember when we traded for him, it was just like such hope I had, and it's just like, damn, that hope gone. I'm like, hope gone, bro. That's not that the hope is gone because I still have like some kind of faith. Like we still play really good defense. There's the defensive side of the football is like at this point is not where my worry is, where I feel like that's a good sign. And there's pieces on offense, but then with the Raiders, they're gonna find a way to fuck it up. And that's the part where hope is crushed. And so to move along, who you got? Aces go down 2 or 0-2 to the New York Liberty. Can they complete a comeback?
No, unfortunately, I don't think so. I think that New York, the way that they've just been playing all year has been really, really good, man. And I think the key to this team was the addition. I'm looking up this young lady right now because it's going to piss me off. Leonie Feibig or whatever, the chick from the young lady from Germany, 24-year-old. I think that adding her was the key addition. You know, her being 6'4" with length and being able to play defense. She was the girl in the inbound play that knocked the ball out of Kelsey Plum's hand. Her. I think that the addition of her and the Aces' willingness to just run it back, you know, they added Tiffany Hayes and stuff along the way, but when it's mano-y-mano, the Liberty realized I need one more person to add to this nucleus in order for us to be successful. And the Aces had a lot of weak links last year, and they were just able to gut through it. And this year, you can't go without those weak links, right? Like, you can't just not fix those, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that they did really much outside of Tiffany Hayes to fix what was lacking.
Yeah.
Right. They need more of an inside presence because to me, Kaya Stokes can't get it done. And we mentioned off cam, Kelsey's Plum lack of attention on defense. She gets busted a lot on defense.
Yeah.
She's a weak link out there. And New York understands where their bread is buttered, and they're able to adjust and fix those things where the Aces are so reliant upon their experience of winning the last 2 years.
Right.
That outside of that experience of winning the last 2 years, there's really no adjustments game after game. So where it equals up to any winning basketball. And I think New York basically added more to win this series and then go on and win more, right? Because they knew what it takes to beat the Aces is height and spacing and being able to put Kelsey Plum in a bad position, and they figured this out. And unfortunately for the Aces, they haven't figured that out yet. And, you know, unfortunately for the Aces, I think New York got this in the bag.
Yeah. You can never underestimate the heart of a champion, but at the same time, there are adjustments they can make, but I don't think they will make them. And I think and you alluded to it, I just don't believe that because of the chances or the experience that Kelsey Plum has with the team and the coach, I don't think that they do what needs to be done as far as sitting her down. in these key moments, and having Tiffany Hayes be the one that's in the game and getting those minutes, because she's much more of a attention to detail, defensive oriented player where she's going to get after it. But Kelsey has these moments where it's like your offensive output is not matching what you got to do, what needs to be done on defense. And that's where I feel like that's an adjustment that can be made. But at the same time, when you do that, it's like you need Asia to be in a position where she can attack, where you can't have her next to Kia Stokes. Like, you need someone else that can be able to contribute, that can play off her. And I don't feel like those two in a key moment where you need to get buckets and you're trading buckets, where it's like bringing a knife to a gunfight, essentially. And so I don't think they're going to be able to do it. It's my squad. I've been ending every podcast with love, peace, and an Aces 3-peat, but I'm not sure if it ends up happening. And so to go to transition over, let me check on this score real quick. Minnesota Lynx and Connecticut Sun going at it right now.
Minnesota 1-7
over. Minnesota ties it up 1-1 in the series. Who you got winning?
I really like Minnesota, man. Like, I think they've been the best team out west all year.
Yeah,
I'm a big Nafisha Collier fan. She just brings it, on the offensive boards. Strong defensive player. She had 4 blocks tonight. 12 rebounds. She's a dog. I really appreciate her game. Also like Courtney Williams. Their guard. They just been playing. Just solid basketball all year. So has Connecticut. Honestly, but I don't know. I just really like Minnesota. Like I just think that, the key is just being, is Collier, so I think it'll be a really, really strong series, but I think Minnesota will gut it out.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think that, like you mentioned, they definitely were the best team all year, especially in the West. They were one of the better teams in the league. And so I do think that they got some dogs on that team, just period, honestly.
Yeah.
Williams is nice, Collier is nice, and I feel like they got a good mixture of where they're young but still got enough veteran leadership as well. And I can definitely see them getting in. I think I'm gonna go Minnesota. I was looking forward to honestly, going into it, I completely forgot that they stopped doing the East and West.
West format.
Yeah, and so I actually thought we were gonna play the Lynx first before we got to the Liberty. And so, but I think looking at this format, I like it, but I'm gonna go Minnesota versus the New York Liberty in the finals. And I think either way, regardless of which 4 teams was going to end up being the ones that win and match up, I felt like it was going to be a really good finals. Does make me a little sad. I'm not going to be able to go to the finals this year, but it is what it is. And so going to my off tops, Buster Posey, who is a former player with the San Francisco Giants, is now moved into the front office. He was part of 3 World Series championship teams. And so leads me to the question, should more players get these types of opportunities where they get to work into player personnel or coaching or somewhere in the front office?
Yeah, like working in the sports industry, like you tend to run into a lot of nepotism a lot of the times, where a team that really, like a person that really has no attachments to an organization, you see them getting jobs, right? They don't care anything about the organization. They just, in for a check and a job, where sometimes it's good to see like a lifetime lineage of a person, working in the organization. Like that's one of the things, like being a Raider fan, for example, that you appreciate with the Raiders is that, you see former players like Eric Allen doing television for them, or Rich Gannon doing television for them.
Yeah,
And they tend to really acknowledge their culture. Like when I was there, Marcel Reese was like the right hand man for Mark Davis, right? And so now it's I want to say it's Richard Seymour, right? I think
that's cool.
Richard Seymour has something to do with the Raiders,
That's
but
what's up.
it's oftentimes cool to like see that, because it's like you spend your blood, sweat, and tears from an organization, and you call an organization your home. And it's good that after your career is over, that they don't chew you out and spit you out, because I've heard that's like one of the hardest processes of athletes retiring is what are they going to do life after the sport. So
Yeah.
being able to find employment and still be a part of the game that you love, for the organization that you love, and still be able to call some shots and do some things within that organization, it's always cool to see it in the transition out of being a player in a career. So I always loved it, man, and I think that it was cool to see. Just to give one really quick example of this too, like our guy from Silverado, Ben Jacobs, right? Like he had to end his career early for concussions, right? Like it was something that, you know, and right when he retired, they groomed him to be the special teams coach, right?
Oh, that's cool.
So he started doing special teams, and it was something that you can't really control concussions, or you can't control injuries. Like we've mentioned Derrick Rose earlier, it'd be cool to see him go back, like to the
Yeah.
Bulls or whatever in some type of capacity, because his career ended in an unfortunate way. But you still want to be a part of that organization's success, even though that you couldn't, your body was physically unable to, do it, or age, so it's always cool to see that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think it's a good thing because they get to speak from certain things from experience. I feel like one of the things now that I've kind of realized is I don't know why this is happening, but when you look at a lot of, especially in basketball, there's not a lot of veteran leadership in these locker rooms. And so
Right.
to be able to have someone that lived through it, been there, can be someone to mentor, but also get an opportunity to know when someone has it and doesn't have it, what certain things to look for. I do think that like Gilbert Arenas, for example, he does have some insightful takes, although he does have some wild ass takes. But there's a lot of times where he has some insightful takes that it's a perspective that is needed because not a lot of people would think of it like that. And I think that living through it, being someone who is in the league, there's a perspective there that doesn't necessarily get included in the room that I think would benefit a lot of organizations. And so I think it is really cool to have someone who won um that many World Series titles be included in it, be included in the organization, being able to be in charge of player personnel. I think that like those certain things, they put you in positions. Being a part of organizations will put you in a certain position, but also being able to take advantage of that. And I think that we're starting. There's like a little bit of a transitional thing here where you see former players as more and more becoming more and more coaches. I think the one that kind of shocked me the most because I just don't see him as a former NBA player is Missoula, the coach of the Celtics. But it's like you look and you go back. He was part of that West Virginia team that upset Kentucky.
Yeah.
It's just like to go from there to work your way through the ranks, and you might not have got to the highest level, but you know what it takes to be able to get something out of your players. And I think that too. I'm glad to see this change in the culture and more players getting these opportunities to shoot. Antonio Pierce is another one.
Yeah.
Although he never played for the Raiders, but just growing up, being a Raider fan, you understand what it means and to be a fan, what that culture is like, and how to instill that in your players. And so, sticking with baseball, they're going back to the home. You get to wear your team's home or away jersey during the All-Star game. The NBA used to do the same thing, but are you in favor of the official All-Star jersey, or you like when they get to wear their team's jersey?
Yeah, I like hometown pride is always a good thing. I think with baseball too being such a growing sport, I think that knowing the name and team that certain players play for is really important, right? Because then it can help in jersey sales, you know what I'm saying, too, right? Seeing your favorite player in an all-star game, learning more about him, and you're like, oh, I like that guy. I want to buy his jersey, right? What team does he, you know what I'm saying? So it just gives a better it just gives a better look and a better feel of support, and it allows fans to support people more and have a little bit of hometown pride that, hey, this is my guy, and he plays for my hometown team and he's repping the hometown, right? Instead of just seeing an American League, National League, you see where he came from, and he's putting on for his city and putting on for his team. So that's really dope to see for sure.
Man, I think that for me, man, I'm like sitting there going back. Like, I used to literally get Tracy McGrady's All-Star jersey every year. And so I think for me, it's like I'm cool with both. Am I prefer? I don't know. I was collecting those jerseys, bro. I remember the red and white striped ones that they had with the gold star for when they were here. I remember I had that one.
I think with the NBA, though, their jerseys have gotten uglier.
Yeah. Where I'm like, I think so we get a new design.
Yeah, like there was one year they looked like McDonald's wrappers. You remember that year? Like it looked like the McChicken wrapper.
Yeah,
And I think that becomes the problem is that, and to me, like when they start wearing throwback vintage jerseys and stuff like that, like that's tight. You know what I'm saying? Like the throwback vintage jerseys.
Because like the poster I did for the outro, those are inspired by like one of them is like the Seattle Supersonics, like that jersey. One of them is like the Vancouver Grizzlies, like the colors that they wore.
Yeah,
it's like those colors and those old jerseys. I feel like those are hard. They need to bring some of those back.
Like watching like NBA All-Star Weekend, for example, like the dunk contest, they usually wear those, or like the skills challenge, they usually wear like their old throwback jerseys. I want to say too, like the rookie All-Star game. They wear like the old throwback jerseys from the team they come from. Like, so those are tight because it's tight to see like those type of jerseys, and it's like, oh shit, like I like that jersey, like I want to cop that because it looks tight with him wearing that, right? So,
and to use this comment as a segue, can't watch the WNBA, need to see Caitlin Clark, bro. Like it's just. As a person that I've watched it, I seen someone tweet this like probably the other day, probably like a week ago. And it's like, as a person that watched the W before it became Caitlin Clark and them came through, there's times where you just like, can we go back to that? Like where y'all wasn't watching this?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, bro, like it's good basketball being played. Like I mentioned, there's 4 different teams that can make it to the finals. In either way, there's just good basketball being played out there where if you're a fan of the game, Caitlin Clark plays really well. Angel Reese has her thing that she does. Alyssa Thomas plays another way. Asia Wilson, Stewie, Sabrina. Like there's so many different players that have so much talent in the league. Arike is another one that I feel like doesn't get talked enough, bro. She's a bucket. Like I hate when people are just like, bro, yes, Caitlin Clark is nice. But when Juju get here, she finna erase all that, bro. It's finna be a wrap.
Yeah,
as a person, question is the negativity too much?
Yeah, it is. As a person that covers the WNBA, bro, like, and I've got a chance to like speak to Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, all these people. It's one of those things to where you're adding things that aren't needed a lot of times. Like you made 2 young ladies who are like barely 22, 23 years old, the face of racism for what?
Yeah.
And they don't even feel that way about each other, but the world does.
Right.
And that's the weird part. Like you have grown men who are like in their 40s arguing, and grown women in their 40s arguing about like civil rights shit that has nothing to do with the game.
Correct.
Right. And it's just to give you TV talking points, or it's just to give you certain talking points, right? To in order for us to talk about the WNBA. Right. And it doesn't really need that. Right. Why can't we enjoy it? Because it's like men's basketball don't go through that, right? Because it's like, I'm going to make this comparison really quick. Like when Luka Doncic does what Luka Doncic does, like where he mixes people, shoots, and talks shit, people don't say anything about it. But when Caitlin Clark does it, like that's, like you try to make a big deal out of that.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, men do the same. Like it's a lot. Why is it a lot worse when it comes to females than it does men? Right? Yeah. It becomes a race. It becomes a racial sexist issue when it comes to women. When it comes to that type of stuff. Yeah. But when it comes to the men, we just let it go. Right. And I'm like, I don't see it because it's like, I remember, Luka Doncic had that thing with the Clippers where he was busting the Clippers' ass. They would push him and do all this other stuff. That wasn't on the front page news, but the moment it happens to Caitlin Clark, breaking news, and everybody wants to talk about it. And I think that becomes the problem and makes it more annoying than anything. Like Caitlin Clark is not wanting this attention and she's not seeking this attention out. Angel Reese isn't wanting this attention or seeking this attention out, right? Yeah. And then when you start to where she plays, Angel or Caitlin Clark is like in Indiana in the South, like where racism is really prevalent. And then it's like not only do you have like the racism that goes on, but then there's a lot of lesbians in the WNBA, and a lot of people who are racist don't like lesbians. So then when you start to go to the game, you heckle a lot, and you say things that aren't prevalent to basketball or aren't good for the game because you think that you're sticking up for your person, but in reality, you're just showing your true colors. And Caitlin Clark doesn't need that type of publicity. She doesn't want that type of publicity because what you're not understanding is you're making it worse for her.
Facts.
So
yeah, I agree, man. I think that the thing about it, and the one part that when you start to talk about like the hypocrisy between the way that the men's game and women's game is looked at is, I feel like there's a certain level to it too, where people complain about how soft the men's game is. But then when people get hard fouls and they're like, oh, they're being too physical. And it's like, all right, bro, like which one do you want it? Do you want them to be physical or do you want them to not be physical? Right. And it's just certain things where like people will be like on the flip side, people that are fans of Caitlin Clark or her stands. When she gets fouled hard or when someone's talking trash to her, they treat her like they try to stick up for her. But she talks a lot of trash too on the court.
She does. That's all she does.
And it's just like, bro, like, why isn't it looked at this way when it's this way? But I'm like, but at the end of the day, it shouldn't be a big deal either way because that's just a part of hoop. Depending on where you grew up from, how you grew up, and how you play, some people are out there talking mad trash, and then there's some people that's busting ass and they not talking trash at all.
My example is Luka Doncic is a whole ass meme making fun of Devin Booker.
Facts.
Whole ass meme. And it's like, why is it like the double standard of like Luka being a white basketball player and a male basketball player? It's okay for him to talk shit. But then it's like when Caitlin Clark does it all, we got to support her. Like, we got to treat her. Right. She's being bullied. Like, bro, like, y'all not helping one bit.
Yeah. And it's like, I think that I'm enjoying the increased viewership of the league, and I think that the ladies deserve it. I'm the way that things are going, like we get Paige next year, and then after that, Juju following up. There's a lot of good young talent going into the college ranks. One of my favorites, I believe her name is Aaliyah Chavez. I just seen that she got strapped, bro. I love just watching her shoot. But I think that there's a lot of good talent coming up the ranks, and I'm enjoying the viewership. I got a daughter. You never know. She could end up wanting to be a WNBA player somewhere down the line. So I'm like, I'm enjoying it, but I feel like at some point, just look at them as hoopers instead of looking them as women, and then that's what now we got to come to their defense because they're athletes like everybody else. You're not out here defending LeBron when LeBron got fouled. Mike got his ass whipped too in the 80s.
Yep.
And look at what he became. It's only gonna make her better. And right now, she's not as strong as she should be. She got to hit the weight room and be able to take on that physicality because she still can handle it. She still was putting up 18-9, but to some degree, she's gonna have to take on the same way that I've compared her, and a lot of people compare her to Steph. If you look at Steph now, Steph is strong to the point where he's not so much of a liability on defense. You can't just pick him out of a group, screen, and ISO Steph anymore. She's going to have to get to that level to where she's going to be able to be a force on, or at least hold her ground on defense, withstand that physicality, and be a hooper at the end of the day. And she had a hell of a season, and I'm loving the direction that the game is going, and can't wait to see Angel Reese come back too. And so we got to get up out of here, y'all. Thank you all for watching. Thanks, my man, Mr. Cool, for interacting in the chat. Yeah. But make sure you go hit that subscribe button. Trying to get to 100 subscribers on YouTube. Type in Juke Network and hit that subscribe button. Follow us at Juke Sports Show on Instagram. Like the Facebook page, the He Say She Say channel. And you can follow me at KYNG RALPH on TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, add an underscore for X or Twitter.
Real quick, RIP to Dikembe and Pete Rose.
Yeah. Moment of silence for them, man. Pete Rose, one of them people that like I was a baseball guy. And I get it that we look at gambling a certain way. But bro, he was betting on his teams to win. Like if you got like, I'm sitting here thinking about it. Like I play sports. I'm a competitor. You got us. We gonna lose by how many runs? No, we gonna cover that. We covering that. I'm winning. I'm taking us money line. So it's like stuff like that. And then he went out there as one of the greatest hitters of all time, and still can't get in the hall. And it's like, man, that baseball hall is annoying.
It's annoying as shit, bro. Yep. And Dikembe too, man.
Yeah, and Dikembe Mutombo, man, hell of a defender. The finger wag, the iconic Cookie Monster voice. R.I.P. to him.
Yep.
But thanks for watching, y'all. We appreciate it. We're getting out of here.
Yep.